And thank you all for joining us here on PM Express. And we're having a conversation about the RTI law. It's been 5 years since that law was passed. Let's ask a question. What do you reckon when you begin to evaluate it, comparing what it promised and what it has delivered? And this comes on the back of the RTI request that we've seen that the Media Foundation for West Africa had put in as it relates to the GRA and the SML controversy. And that was a fair bit of controversy between the SML itself, but also the GRA with the finance ministry caught in the middle. And the questions around whether the presidency will give out that KPMG report, which was constituted by the president to look into the matter. And if you look at the timelines, it was one of those interventions that the president was forced to do on the back of those revelations by Fourth Estate to look into the propriety of that particular contract that the GRA entered into with the SML. And they came out with their report, which was very controversial. The president put out portions of that, but the Media Foundation for West Africa went to the president with an RTI request asking the presidency to release a full report. As we know, the presidency turned down that particular request, and the reason was simple. One of the reasons they gave was that it is part of the exempt items that you cannot use in the RTI request to secure. And that the presidency has also already published portions of that particular report. And I must emphasize that particular point, that the principal findings of the report have been published. That's what the president claimed. But what are principal findings? Why don't we verify it for ourselves? Is a question that the Media Foundation for West Africa was asking. That is what you tell us, but I want to see the full document ourselves. But the presidency used the clauses that they are put up there to, in essence, reject that particular request. And a few things came up for us that we thought was interesting. Now, what are the exempt clauses? The clauses that the presidency was referring to, one is that information prepared for the president or the vice president for consideration is exempt from disclosure, which is what the law says, and which was the presidency was quoting there. And also disclosure information revealing recommendations or consultations given to the president or vice president. Again, it is exempt. The president was using that to reject the RTI request that has been made by the Fourth Estate. And then also the point about information containing factual or statistical data is an exempt from disclosure. Some have thrown in that there. I mean, I'm talking about that entire clause that the presidency had used there, that's section 5.1a and b1, that they had referenced to reject the RTI request that had been put in. That is the latest incident that has generated a fair bit of controversy around the use of the RTI. And I want to quickly look at something for you, because one of the things that we want to do tonight is also to examine what has happened over the last 5 years since we passed the RTI law, right? And we've been looking at that. And I found some very interesting data I want to share with you. As we ask the question, 5 years on, if you compare the promise to the reality, have we made progress? Has the act served its purpose? So it's been 5 years, as you know, by now. And I want to show you some of the numbers that we found very interesting. So far, there have been 1,053 requests made so far, right? So that's quite a huge number of requests. There have been 844 approvals. Only 47 requests have been rejected. Now, if you put that in the context of what we've just been talking about here, on the bigger context, then many will say, well, the law is working. And if you even look at it in percentage terms, the case is even stronger. 80.15% approval rate. That's against 4.46%. Those are just hard numbers, right? But as my guest will tell you, there are a bit of nuances in there. But if you look at the hard numbers, shouldn't we just come to the conclusion that the RTI has indeed served its purpose, considering the sheer number of cases and requests that have gone in, but most importantly, those that have been approved? And for me, these two tell quite a significant story. Now, again, as you know, if you are aggrieved, and even for us at Multimedia, we've had instances where our application has been rejected, and we've taken it on appeal at the RTI Commission. So currently, we've seen 85 applications currently under review. Now, other data that we gleaned from the RTI Commission that was interesting is that some organizations have violated the RTI legislation and the principles in there. And so they've been fined. And we found that since 2019, we've had 1.06 million cedis in terms of the fines that have been imposed on organizations that have breached the terms of that particular law, and so they've been fined this. Is this enough? And I'm wondering, should we now, having applied it for 5 years, be thinking about making this a bit more punitive so organizations who pay more to stop them from blatantly, although the information is not exempt, hide the exemptions, and then you have a commission ruling on that and imposing fines. If the fines are hefty enough, maybe we'll see organizations comply. I don't know, but that's a conversation we'll have tonight. And then I've seen a few of the reasons that have been used. See, for rejection. Exempt information is a primary one that you find that organizations use, even when they know that information on your requesting is not exempt. They will say it's exempted, right? We've also seen requests that have been sent to wrong institutions. And for me, this comes down to education. 5 years on, people are still making requests and sending them to wrong institutions. Why is that, by the way? It's something that we'll get into. When you begin to unpack the information and the breakdown of where we are 5 years, so you begin to see where some of the challenges will be. Are we seeing an abuse of the exemption clauses and the information regarding which institutions you should request information from? It's also one that is an issue. But then I find this also very interesting, this data here, that you will see that the rest of the country has been completely left behind when it comes to the right to information, enjoying that right. It's only institutions in Accra, individuals and institutions largely in Accra, who are exercising the right and enjoying the fruits of the right. Why is that? What is happening here? Why is it that you have Western North, Upper West, Northeast, Northern Region? They haven't had a single request go in yet on RTI, although that right is there for everybody to enjoy. It's a key question that we need to ask here. What is happening? How do you explain what I'm seeing here? Greater Accra alone has 681 requests. You can make a request anywhere you are in this country. And there are key issues, I bet, if you sit in the Western North, for example, that you will need to know. But is it that people are just not interested, or there's a lack of education on the subject? That, for me, is another key point that to note. Now, another key issue that we've seen as we look through the data is the receiving agencies. The Ghana Tertiary Education, this is one I found interesting. And I wonder, the Department of Children, what is there that people really are interested in getting information from them on? And then Ministry of Information is obvious, right? Of course, it's in Ministry of Information. People hear the name information, and so they believe you can send a request there and get whatever information that they require. Is that how it works? We'll get my guests to join in. And then you look at this data here, talking about the budget allocation that has been given to the RTI Commission. And you begin to see that from its inception then in 2020, it dipped in 2021, the COVID years. But more instructively, it's been on an upward trajectory since 2023, which is a good thing. In fact, if you look at it, 22.9 million is the highest allocation that has been made to the RTI Commission yet. And the question then becomes, is 22.9 million enough? But that was budgetary allocation. Was it actually released? It's a question that we'll ask. My guests know that. They know a bit more than I do. When they join me, they'll tell us whether they are equipped to do this. We've reached out to the Commission. At the last check, they were not available to comment on this and talk to us, but hopefully, let's see. We're trying to just make some more calls so we can hear from them on this as we assess what has happened over the period. But I'm also interested in how this plays out in the World Press Freedom Index. If you read the report around the index, they always reference how effective the RTI law has been as part of the assessment of the overall freedom of expression, freedom of the press landscape in Ghana. And one of the things that we see is that, as you see, since 2021, we've been dipping. Just last week, as you know, the latest one came up and we climbed slightly. But it hasn't been good. We've been in the red for quite a while. But if you are just looking at the role that the RTI is playing in this, as the data has shown you suggests, we're doing quite well on that subject because of the overwhelming number of requests that have been approved. Agencies are being responsive. My guests will join me as we begin to unpack what I've just told you a bit more and understand where the nuances are. Is it okay to have this law the way it is, or is it time to review aspects of this to make it even more effective? My guest will join me after this. Stay with me. And thanks for staying with us. As you know, PM Express is always brought to you by Syntax Tanks. It is strong, it is tough. Alomo Bitters experience greatness in every moment. Ghana AIDS Commission, and also Pepsodent, every smile matters. And no matter your water needs, Syntax Tanks has it all. Syntax Tanks is the first to introduce a double layer tanks in Ghana, and they come bespoke because you can order it any size, any color of your choice. They also have 7 years warranty. You can call them across the country on 0244 335 168 or shop online at syntaxgh.com. Syntax tanks are strong, are tough, and every evening before you sleep, you need to brush your teeth with Pepsodent because they have the pro-fluoride and microcalcium ingredients sealing tiny and invisible holes in your teeth. This prevents the cavities and keeps your teeth also strong and healthy. Pepsodent Cavity, it comes in different packs, 175G all the way down to 12G sachets, so you can always get what you can afford at any time. My guest joining me for a conversation tonight is Samson Lada Yenini, who is a lawyer and a colleague here, has been studying the subject of the RTI for quite some time, and joins me with his thoughts on this matter. Also joining me is Mary Ada, Executive Director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative, also joins me with his thoughts on this day. We're in the trenches fighting for the RTI legislation to be passed. It has been passed. It's 5 years. Let's assess it. Kwame Nyimedwe is the chairman of the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee. Of course, they had shepherded this particular bill through Parliament until its passage, having implemented it for the past 5 years. I wonder what his thoughts are on how effective it's been. Now, Suleiman Abrahima has been a champion of the RPI for a while. In fact, his organization has been, and they have used it quite a bit. They recently made an application to the president to allow the access to the KPMG report as it relates to the SML investigations, and they were turned down. He's Executive Director of the Media Foundation for West Africa. I'm happy that he can join me. I mean, Sule, I want to start with you because I look at the statistics when we reach out to the RTI Commission for it. And I see, if you look at the total number of requests that they've received so far, 1,053, and we have 80.15% of that approved. Only 4.46% rejection rate. You look at that instantly, you think, well, this is a very effective implementation over the past 5 years, and we really achieved our objectives. It's met the promise. Well,
I would partly agree with your assessment. I think that we've seen some progress. And in fact, if you look at it in relation to what prevails in other countries that even passed their RTI laws before us, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Nigeria, Guinea, Cote d'Ivoire, and the others, certainly the implementation in Ghana is going quite well done in those countries. But I don't think that it's been a smooth sailing one. I don't think that we can say that it's really been highly successful. Yes, we may have an 80% requests in terms of responding, but whether or not that is the same as information being disclosed is a different thing. It's one thing requesting for information from an institution and the institution responding to you and saying, well, either we'll give you or we are unable to give you. And another thing when you apply and then the information is given. The other thing that we need to look at is even the 20 or so % in terms of what we say is the rejection rate. What caliber of information is often turned down? Perhaps it is the most important, the most critical, the most crucial. And in that case, if it turns out that it's only even the 5%, it's only 5%, it's still very, very important. I mean, if I write to the births and deaths registry and I say, I want to know the number of births and deaths that were registered in 2023 or 2024, and they grant that, fine, it's useful, it's helpful. But that's different from, we applying for, let's say, a contract between the Ministry of Finance or GRA and SML, which involves colossal sums of money, and we not being granted that, request. It is also a different thing writing to the president to say, well, you commissioned this audit report, you've received it, you've made your position known, and so can you share a copy with us? And then the president says no, because there is a provision that says if I receive a report or if a report is compiled for me, I cannot grant it, then it is not granted.
But the president is right in that case, is it not? I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Absolutely not. I mean, I think that I've responded to that several times. We're talking about a situation where the president has received a report, deliberated on it, considered it, put forward his decisions in terms of accepting the recommendations of KPMG, making known some of the findings in the KPMG report that he wishes that we get to know about, and actually issuing his directives on the basis of the report. So what is it that the president would say, well, if I issue it out there, it will affect the deliberative processes or reveal an opinion? I mean, those opinions have been communicated, unless the president or the report contains something that the president would want to hide from the public. And that is why tomorrow we're actually submitting a petition to the RTI Commission challenging the decision of the presidency on our request. And
the basis on the basis of that petition will be?
The basis of it is our disagreement with the position taken by the presidency, being in terms of the grounds that they've cited in refusing the request that we made. And we are saying that we think that that is rather not the right position. And of course, if you read the Section 5 that they referenced, it's quite clear that we are talking about, if we were talking about a report that has been submitted to the president, and the president is yet to communicate about it or yet to make known whatever it is, then of course you would say, well, it's still under consideration. The president is still deliberating on the matter. But we are talking about a report that has been submitted. The president has come out clearly to tell us what was contained in the report, his position on the report. And so if you read Section 5 quite clearly, I think it's a misinterpretation of the provisions of Section 5, basically to do a denial. And so we would want the RTI Commission to take steps to ensure that the presidency grants our request.
Okay, I want to bring in Inyimido Inchu, who is obviously the chair of the Constitutional Legal Affairs Committee in Parliament, to the conversation. On this particular subject, we lost him. We'll get him back when we do. But something, what's your verdict? What's your verdict on the RTI law's implementation 5 years on?
The implementation has been good so far, particularly on the part of the RTI Commission and the rulings that it has given. The disappointing part so far has been very essential, critical information that is non-exempt, applied for, and you have had public institutions trying to play smart with the law, but clearly not entitled to act in the manner in which they do. And then the people you expect to be cracking the whip, not exercising their authority and showing that they are committed to this. For example, I expect that if the Minerals Commission so blatantly abuses the law in denying information to the Media Foundation for West Africa by using its own law to say that its own law overrides the RTI Act, and therefore, if they want information, it is the Minerals Commission law that they will use and not the RTI Act. When the RTI Act in Section 85 is very clear that the RTI Act supersedes and overrides all other laws when an application is made. So let's be clear about this, Evans, before we move on. If there were laws in existence for particular organizations about how they should deal with information when the public requests them. The new RTI Act that has come in since 2019 is to the effect that when an application is made for information from that particular organization, which already had an existing law on how to deal with such a process, you suspend your law and allow the RTI Act to take place.
Is it ignorance on the part of the commission? They simply are not informed?
It's not ignorance, it's deliberate on the part of the Minerals Commission, where they were charging dollars for what they needed to give out when the RTI Act is very clear on what they ought to do. But Evans, it has to be said, if you look at the institutions that have all been slapped with fines by the RTI Commission, very good rulings from the RTI Commission upholding the Article 21 rights that this law gives expression to. And many of them have not paid. Many of them have treated the RTI Commission with levity. And they are still going on. Some are doing things that are unthinkable. My expectation has been that the president will condemn these institutions, the information ministry, those who head the information ministry, and significant persons in government will condemn these particular institutions and call them to book for not doing
why must they when you have an RTI commission?
No, we are implementing a law. The RTI Commission's job is not responsibility for these organizations. So that if I am the appointer of a particular person into a particular office, and I see that they are breaching the law in such a shameful way, I should be able to publicly say that what you're doing is wrong, and then actually go ahead to let them know that if their conduct lead to fines from the RTI Commission, the individual heads will be made to pay them and not the state paying those fines. But more importantly, it ought to be stated that the beginning of this law in section 2, it talks about proactive disclosure. Proactive disclosure is that you do not need people to apply before you make the disclosure. And the law is specific about it, that you should disclose information without people having to request for it. What we are seeing being done is reactive disclosure, and that's not the best in any system.
I mean, stay with me, Sam. I want to bring in Mary Ada into the conversation. Mary, so you were very instrumental in advocating for the passage of the bill. Are you satisfied with the way it's been implemented 5 years on?
Thank you very much, Evans, and good evening to your cherished listeners. I would say that so far we cannot complain too much. I believe Samson and Sule have made the point that some good has come out of the implementation of the law. However, we still have gaps. Samson just mentioned one of the biggest I wanted to speak to. Section 2 of the Act speaks to proactive disclosure. As we sit, we do not have any standardized measure for institutions disclosing information publicly for citizens to have access to. And the law has two parts. It has what civil society and other citizens are doing, going out there to request for information. However, if we had proactive disclosure in the law, then it means public institutions will be disclosing contracts. They would be disclosing all information civil society and the media require. Then it will make things easy for us. We wouldn't have to go looking for such information. However, till now, the other challenge would have to do with the LI, which I know has been put in place to go to Parliament for them to get it signed for us. Unfortunately, without the LI, some of the explanations or the expansions that would explain how the proactive disclosure should be done is not there. And so we believe that that is not good enough. We also have issues around some of the institutions not having information officers as yet. And the attitude that has been spoken to here of public officials holding information close to their chest and speaking to the fact that some of this information is exempt information, and for that matter, secret and not being able to share. Unfortunately, bureaucracy is continued to be a bane for this law. But then, on a whole, it's done some good. People, just like you have given the statistics, the approval levels are commendable.
Yeah.
As to what information was approved of is what maybe we should be interrogating.
Yeah.
And just like Sule said, some of the cases where you realize that information is very sensitive, a little sensitive, you realize denials. So let's see if we are interrogating the information or the data further, what have been the data that has been given out to civil society and all those who have demanded these. So for me, my initial submission.
Yeah, and this is something that I come across in all your submissions about the potential abuse of the exempt clauses in the provision. Of course, largely we've seen the approval rate, which is very, very high, 80.15%. We calculate. I want to bring in Enyimedo Entry into the conversation. And of course, they were very instrumental in reviewing this particular law until this was passed. Mr. Enyimedo Entry, that if you go back to Suleiman Abrahim's point, for example, around the KPMG report, which obviously had to do with the SML investigations, that the audit that was done by KPMG that went to the president, he makes the point. The presidency said the information they were requesting was exempt because, of course, the law says if it's gone to the presidency or the vice president, it's exempt. But he makes a very important point about, the president has already put out their opinion on the matter. They've actually communicated aspects of this already. And so it ceases to be within the exempt territory. There's a sense that one of the challenges this faces possible abuse of the exempt clauses in the provision. What's your take on that?
Right. Thank you very much, and good evening to your cherished listeners. First, you asked a question earlier on. I think that I would have to say that so far, so good.
Okay.
That the implementation has started well. The commissioners, the RTI Commission has been very vigilant in meeting institutions and putting the institutions on their toes. And I think I even had an opportunity to discuss with the chief executive that sometimes when you start something like this, you need to warn people. People are getting used to it for the first time. You know how long they stayed in Parliament. All throughout, when I had been a parliamentarian, it was a bill until it became a law 5 years ago. So people, even the implementation, were wondering in Parliament how it will go, and then even where the office, which office was going to be responsible. But finally, we are here and ongoing. The exemption part of it was necessary because as a state, we cannot just give any information to the public or put it out there. In as much as we agree that the public would need some kind of information, it cannot be absolute. The information cannot be absolute. For instance, if it has to do with the presidency, if it has, as you had rightly said, with the vice presidency and whatnot. But I'll give you one example which came up. I am the chairman of the Fire Service Council, the Ghana National Fire Service Council. Somebody asked a question, and the information the person wanted was how many fire tenders were with the service. And we discussed this at the board, and we thought that for someone to say that, let me have this information, what are you going to use this for?
But is that
Yes.
a question that you should be asking? Isn't it your job to just give?
It's getting closer to some privileged information which must be exempt. For instance, if this information gets out there, how can you tell whether another person is going to attack the country because the person sees that, okay, the fire tenders we have, for instance, all throughout the country, only 50 is in the country, and that we don't have one in the north, we don't have one at the upper east, upper west, which might be the easy way or easy target. So we were thinking that this must be part of the exempt information. So the exemptions is very necessary. And if any person says that this is exempt, and the
But
commission
information in that specific example, though, what you put forth right now is not exempt, right? It's not under national security.
It's not.
Yes.
But I see. You see, we had done the law. It's not absolute. Probably we haven't touched everywhere, but the law is on the side of the commission. The law we might even have an oversight. For instance, if somebody should ask the question, how many men do we have at the north? You realize that quite recently, men, so far as police is concerned, so far as military is concerned, security-wise. But the security, I know, is exempted. So somebody comes out of a question, how many men have been stationed within the north and whatnot? There are gray areas.
Let's try and give the people the right education about exemptions.
So that is something there coming in on the point you made. If you may, I'll just give him 1 second to come in. Something?
Right.
And
Okay.
I'll come back to you in a minute.
I wanted to correct a wrong impression. Evans, the fact that information goes to the presidency or the vice president is not exempt because it has gone to them. When you're reading the law, you need to read and finish it. So if it goes to those places, the law says if the disclosure of information that is gone to the presidency, if it will reveal the contravention of a law or the failure to comply with law, it is not exempt. If it is merely statistical data that has gone there or you are requesting for, it is not exempt even though it has gone to the presidency. Okay? If it is a disclosure about miscarriage of justice, it is not exempt. If it is information about abuse of authority or neglect in the performance of an official function, it is not exempt. And remember, the exemption clauses are from section 15 to section 17. And then at the end of section 17 is where you have the harms test, where it provides an overriding provision that even if the information is exempt, but it is in the public interest and the disclosure, the benefit of the disclosure outweighs the danger it will cause, it will still have to be exempt. In any case, even if it is exempt, the president has the power to decide that it will be given and it will be given. So let's note those things.
Okay. Mr. Numerentry.
Right. Thank you very much, Samson. Thank you for it. It's very clear on something is very clear on that. But the commission may decide if you think that this information is closer to something that must be exempted, or it is part of the information that must be exempted. The commission may decide that you have to go ahead and do it. And if there's a procedure, it may go to court, and the court may pronounce on it that you have to do it. So I wouldn't say that institutions are abusing the law. And the commissioners are very vigilant. If, for instance, in the fire service issue that I'm talking about, invariably there was a meeting and we agreed on the way forward, and it was a win-win for both the Commission and the Ghana National Fire Service. So I think we are at 5 years appears to be a long time, but because this law is new, apparently, I'll put it in brackets that it is new throughout. It's even something that is not very popular globally. And Ghana is one of the few countries that are implementing that. So I think that we need to educate. The Commission would have to educate institutions and also tread cautiously, probably write to them, give them the information, this, that, and the education that you have to give such an information. And I'm sure institutions would comply.
I mean, and let me bring you Sule. So one of the things that I found interesting when I was looking at the data is that most parts of the country, they haven't even begun to exercise that right at all, enjoying it. Accra has almost all the data when it comes to the requests that have been put in. 681. Ashanti region is next, the part 367 requests put in so far. There are many parts of the country where no requests have come in at all. What's happening there? And how do we improve that? Because the right that we're enjoying here in institutions like yourself and us, it's something that will be beneficial to the guy in Western North, Upper West, Northeast, Northern, Ahafo, Bono. Agencies there can make requests, for example, to get clarity on issues that are very pertinent to the people there, but nobody's pursuing it. Is it ignorance of the law? What's happening there? How do you fix it? Please unmute for me.
Well, Evans, I think, yes, of course. Can you hear me?
I can. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I think a number of factors. One, of course, is the fact that people are still quite unfamiliar with the provisions of the law. Some don't even know about the existence of the law at all. And indeed, it's important to point out that even before the coming into existence of the law, the Constitution had an overarching provision that still made access to information something that was, legally catered for, but not as many people asserted that fundamental right. And of course, the RTI law came into being to give full effect to that constitutional provision, Article 21(1)(f). So yes, there is the problem about people not being fully aware or sometimes not aware. The other challenge is also that, of course, Accra is where the Commission is, and the Commission has done quite a lot of public education work within Accra. The big media houses that are able to take advantage of the law to request for information, a number of them are here in Accra. In terms of the office and its efforts to decentralize, I know there was an attempt, there was a process ongoing to have a regional office in the Ashanti region, and there was also conversation about having a regional office in Tamale. I believe if those offices were in place, those offices would also begin to do a number of public education and sensitization that would get more people aware and more people interested in using the law. But I should also say that I'm quite disappointed when it comes to the media. Because, Samson is here. We have, had the benefit of having him trained as many journalists across the country. We have actually had Samson help us put together a manual, a simplified version of the manual for journalists to be able to understand the law and how they can utilize it for their reporting. And I think that if there is any form of disappointment at all, I would say that it's in the within the media community, where trainings have been conducted and sometimes, even support is offered in terms of guidance, in terms of, liaison between the applicant and the RTI Commission. And yet you still don't have as many journalists, utilizing the law in a way that I believe would have helped in terms of revelations, in terms of exposures, in terms of reporting on matters that are of significant public interest. And I think we have to up our game when it comes to the utilization of the law among journalists.
And very briefly, Sule, if you had to, having practiced this, implemented this law for 5 years. If there's one thing you want to possibly recommend for review, what would it be? Or you think it's fine as it is, or we should keep it the same?
Well, at this stage, in terms of review, maybe someone would say it's early days yet. We're still testing it. I believe we have to continue to encourage public sector officers to appreciate the fact that the information they hold is not their property. The information they hold actually belongs to the public. And therefore, there's no point in denying the public the owners of the information when they request for it. I'm happy that the honorable member here said he chairs the Fire Service Council and raised the issue of fire service. If you recall, we actually made a request to fire service and it wasn't granted. In the end, the commission imposed a levy of 50,000 on fire service. As far as I know, that money has still not been paid. And it was basically information about a record of how many fire outbreaks have occurred in the country for a certain period of, a certain number of years. And it wasn't provided. I don't know whether it is because they don't have the data or it was just, oh, look, you can go to hell with this. And it wasn't done. And a levy was imposed until till date, it has not been complied with. I don't know if it is in the context of the levy that the honorable member says they met with the commission and then there was a win-win situation. Because if it is, then it's important that we get to know. Because it wasn't just that a levy was imposed, but the other condition was that the information requested had to also be supplied. So if there has been some agreement, a win-win situation between the fire service and the RTI Commission, I think that we have to go back and say, well, since that has been settled, please give us the information that we requested.
And Ms. Enyimbenchu, do you want to quickly respond to that for me? Do you have an update on this?
Oh, yes. I think the information had since been provided. What needed to be provided was provided. So that's not an issue. But I think going by on another tangent.
Sorry, did you say, Sule, did you get that information?
The information has since been provided.
Not at all. I mean, if it was
really,
or if it's been provided, it would have come to us because we requested for the information. But of course, I mean, it's also important. We can follow up with the RTI Commission tomorrow.
Yes.
On the basis of the chairman's comment here to verify that.
Okay.
Perhaps maybe it was submitted to the commission instead of to the requesters, which was, I mean, the foundation.
Yeah. Okay. It has been provided. But most importantly, I think that as part of the implementation, and I'm wearing another cap as the chairman of the Constitutional, Legal, and Parliamentary Affairs Committee, and we are planning to tour the whole nation and meet with the district offices, how best the commission or the Right to Information Commission could be accommodated within the district assemblies because they have problems with office accommodation. The moment, because I oversight as the committee oversights the commission, there are, for instance, some monies that are being paid on rent alone in Accra is a lot of money.
Okay.
And we are looking at a situation where the commission would be eased so far on financially and be given offices in order that if it comes to education and access to the office, it will be very easy. So we are looking at some logistical issues and with Parliament is moving very soon to most districts. We may not be able to cover all the districts, but we would select some districts and make a report to Parliament, and then a decision would be made by
Ms.
Parliament.
Thank you very much. And I want to give a quick 30 seconds to Mary. Mary, is there anything you want to touch in the law as it is now, or you want to keep it the way it is?
No, for the law, I believe it's too young to be thinking about revisions. However, the legislative instrument or the LI should be quickly looked at. And I know the RTI Commission is paid attention to that because I also belong to the RTI coalition, which you know of, and we have made our input. So it's now the onus lies on Parliament, and so the chair here would also then support us to see how we can get the LI passed. When it's passed, it will then strengthen some of those gaps we are talking about here, and also expand the basis of what we already have in the law.
Okay.
And we believe with that we would have a law that can do a lot of things for us, particularly around proactive disclosure and also on the regimes that are exempt, and then the Section 17 that Samuel spoke to.
Okay. Mary, thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. And this is a conversation that obviously is interesting. We've seen the chairman say they're going to be touring the country to empower them. It is one of the laws rather, that empowers us to do our jobs. And Suleimana is right. I mean, as journalists ourselves, we haven't taken full credit, but we haven't made full use of the RTI legislation yet. We'll see if we can do that in the coming days. Enjoy the rest of your evening.